Here's a question that almost every brokerage asks when planning an event. How much does the speaker cost? It's a logical question. Budgets matter, events require planning, and leadership teams want to make sure they're making a smart investment. But the brokers who get the most value from events usually ask a slightly different question. What kind of impact will this create for our agents? I'm Emily Terrell, the real estate coach and speaker at Tom Ferry, the top AI coach and a leading voice in systems and AI for agents. And after working with brokerages, leadership teams, and conference organizers across the country, I've noticed something interesting. The events that truly move the needle for agents aren't just well delivered, they're well designed. And that design often begins with the structure behind the speaker agreement. So if you're planning events for your brokerage or team, here are 3 things to think about that many organizers overlook. First, clarity around the goal of the event. Before hiring a speaker, it's helpful to ask a simple question. What do we want our agents to do differently after this event? Sometimes the goal is inspiration, sometimes it's systems, sometimes it's leadership development, but when the outcome is clear, the speaker can tailor the message to meet that goal. When a message addresses the real challenges agents are facing, whether that's lead generation, productivity, or adapting to new technology, engagement increases dramatically. And engagement is what turns a presentation into action. The second factor is preparation and collaboration. Many people assume the value of a speaker begins when they walk onto the stage, but in reality, the most impactful speaking engagements often involve collaboration before the event ever happens. When speakers and organizers work together ahead of time, the content becomes far more relevant. Instead of a generic presentation, the audience hears ideas that directly apply to their daily business. And when agents feel like a message was built with them in mind, they're much more likely to implement what they learn. The third factor, and this might be the most important, is follow-through. A speaking event is a spark, but the real ROI comes from what happens after the spark. The brokerages that see the biggest impact from events do something simple but powerful. They keep the conversation going, they reference the frameworks discussed during the presentation, they revisit key ideas during team meetings, they encourage agents to implement the strategies that were shared. When leadership reinforces those ideas, the event stops being a one-day experience. It becomes part of the culture, and culture is what drives long-term performance. One brokerage leader once told me something that stuck with me. They said the most valuable part of a speaking event wasn't the presentation itself. It was the conversations their agents had afterward. Agents discussing ideas, agents comparing strategies, agents challenging each other to implement what they learned. If you're planning events for your brokerage or conference, it helps to think about speaker agreements not just as logistics or payment terms, but as the starting point for a larger experience. An experience designed to help your agents grow, adapt, and perform at a higher level. If you're interested in more ideas around leadership, real estate systems, and how teams can implement AI and operational strategies more effectively, you can always explore resources at www.coachemilyterrell.com. And I share practical insights for agents and brokerage leaders every week on Instagram at @CoachEmilyTerrell. Because when events are designed intentionally, from the agreement to the follow-up, they become far more than just another presentation. They become a catalyst for real growth inside a brokerage.